I tested 6 free cloud storage apps, and one of the people who literally helped shape AI policy in this country could not turn off the AI that was reading his tax return. Let that sit for a second. Not a random user, not someone who panicked over a pop-up. A senior advisor on AI governance, sitting in his own Google Drive, watching an AI-generated summary appear on top of a private, confidential tax document he never asked anyone to touch. He tried to turn it off. He tried again. The feature kept running. That is not a glitch you laugh off. That is the moment free cloud storage stopped being a convenience question and became a trust question. So I tested 6 of these services that everyone treats as basically the same thing: Google Drive, OneDrive, Dropbox, Mega, Proton Drive, and a few others riding along in the same conversation. On the surface, they all look identical. Upload a file, sync it, access it anywhere. But underneath that identical-looking surface, there is a massive difference, and almost nobody talks about it. The difference is not speed. It is not storage size. It is not the app icon. The difference is who actually holds the key to your files. And once you understand that one detail, every single one of these free services starts looking very different. Here is why this matters. Most people assume encryption is encryption. You see the word encrypted on a pricing page, and you stop thinking about it. But that word is doing a lot of quiet work to make you feel safe without actually promising anything. Standard encryption on most of these platforms means your file is scrambled while it travels and scrambled while it sits on a server. That sounds great until you realize the company still holds the key that unlocks it. They can open it, they can scan it, they can feed it into an AI tool if they decide to. Real end-to-end encryption, the kind that actually protects you, means the file is locked on your device before it ever leaves, and the company never gets the key at all. Those are 2 completely different promises wearing the same word. And once you see that gap, you start understanding why this story gets ugly fast. Let's start with Google Drive, because this is the one that should make you sit up straight. The incident with Kevin Bankston, the AI governance advisor, was not some obscure forum complaint. He posted publicly about watching Gemini generate an AI summary on top of a private tax return sitting in his drive. He went looking for the setting to disable it. He found a toggle. He switched it off. The AI kept running anyway. Now, to be fair, and this matters, some people in that discussion pointed out that the tool generating the summary might not be the exact same system used for any broader AI training data. That distinction is real, and it deserves to be said out loud instead of buried. But here's the problem with that defense. It does not fix the actual issue users are angry about. Google has publicly stated that workspace data is not used to train its generative AI models or to feed targeted advertising. That is the official position, and there is no confirmed evidence proving otherwise. But Bankston's lived experience tells a completely different story. The setting that was supposed to stop this did not stop it. Google says one thing in its policy. A real user experienced something else in practice. Both of those facts are true at the same time, and that contradiction is exactly the story. That is not a bug. That is the business model showing through the cracks. Think about what that actually means for a normal person. You are not a privacy researcher. You are not reading documentation at midnight trying to figure out which checkbox actually does what it claims. You uploaded a tax document because that is what cloud storage is for. And the system treated your most sensitive financial paperwork as content to summarize, whether you wanted that or not. If someone who studies AI governance for a living could not turn this off, what makes you think the average person ever finds the real setting, let alone gets it to actually work? But that is only the beginning. Dropbox handled this even worse, and the proof is that their own CEO had to publicly apologize for it. Back when Dropbox rolled out its AI search feature called Dash, they enabled a third-party AI toggle by default, not opt-in, default on. The only users automatically excluded from that default were people in Canada, the UK, and the European Economic Area, because those regions have stronger privacy protections baked into law. Everyone else, including the United States, got opted in without lifting a finger. Translation: your privacy depended entirely on which country's laws happened to protect you. That is not privacy. That is a loophole, and you only benefit from it by accident of geography. When this became public, it blew up fast. Writer Winifred Burton flagged the setting first. AI critic Carla Ortiz amplified it. Tech press described the reaction as a genuine firestorm. And Dropbox's CEO, Drew Houston, came out and personally apologized, saying the confusion was on Dropbox. Let that land for a second. The CEO did not say users misunderstood a feature. He said the company got it wrong. That is about as close to an admission as you are going to get from a billion-dollar company. And to be fair, this also was not a passive background leak. Dropbox maintains the data only moved when users actively used the AI feature, and that anything sent to a third party like OpenAI was deleted within 30 days. That detail matters, and leaving it out would be dishonest. But it does not undo the core issue. The setting that controlled access to your files was switched on for you by a company without asking. That is the part people are angry about. And this is where the problem gets worse, because it is not just Google and it is not just Dropbox. Microsoft has its own version of this exact pattern, and most people have no idea it is happening. Microsoft's mobile Copilot redesign quietly changed how the Office app handles your files. According to an investigation by Windows Latest, along with a wave of matching user reports, opening certain documents in the new AI-first mobile experience can route local files into OneDrive and Copilot for analysis before you have even finished looking at the document. You did not click Upload. You did not choose to sync that file to the cloud. You opened a document, and the app may have made that decision for you. The investigation specifically points out that the consent mechanics here, meaning when this happens, whether it's optional, and what the user actually sees before it occurs, are described as ambiguous in Microsoft's own public documentation. That is not proof of secret intent. Microsoft has not been shown to have planned this maliciously. But ambiguous documentation about whether your personal file just left your device is not a small detail. That is the part users hate. You didn't upload that file to the cloud. The app did it for you. The privacy side goes even deeper though, because this is not the only thing happening inside Microsoft's AI layer right now. Security researchers at Varonis recently uncovered a vulnerability chain they named SearchLeak, sitting inside Microsoft 365 Copilot Enterprise. This was serious enough that Microsoft assigned it a critical severity identifier, CVE 2026422824. What did SearchLeak actually do? It allowed an attacker to craft a specially built link that, if clicked, could pull sensitive data straight out of a victim's mailbox, their OneDrive, or their SharePoint account. Not through a stolen password, not through a brute force attack. Through the AI search feature itself, the exact tool meant to make your files easier to find and organize. That alone would be enough to make headlines. Here's the twist that makes it worse. Microsoft has stated, officially, that prompts, responses, and data accessed through Microsoft Graph are not used to train foundation models, including the models behind Copilot. That is the privacy promise on paper. But a privacy promise about training data does nothing to stop an exploit chain that lets an outside attacker pull your files directly out of your account, using the AI feature's own search pipeline. Microsoft did patch this. It is not an ongoing live threat as you're hearing this. But for a window of time, the same AI tool marketed as a way to organize your digital life was, in practice, a one-click way for someone else to walk straight into it. This exposes a much bigger issue. The official policy and the real-world risk are two completely separate conversations, and companies keep wanting you to only pay attention to the first one. So at this point, you might be thinking, fine, skip the corporate giants entirely. Go with something that markets itself as private from day one. Mega seems like the obvious move. 20 gigabytes free, the largest permanent free tier in this entire comparison, and it has marketed end-to-end encryption since the day it launched, with the company stating outright that even Mega itself cannot read your files. And yes, there is a catch. In 2022, researchers from the University of Zurich published findings showing serious cryptographic weaknesses in how Mega's encryption was actually implemented. Their research demonstrated scenarios where an entity in control of Mega's own infrastructure could potentially extract a user's encryption keys. That is not a forum rumor. That is not a paranoid Reddit thread. That is academic cryptography research identifying a real flaw in a system that had been publicly marketed as airtight. To be clear, this was a 2022 finding, and there is no confirmed information here about Mega's current systems today. This is not a warning that Mega is broken right now, but it is a warning about something far more important. Marketing claims and independently verified claims are not the same sentence. Mega said no one can access your data. Outside cryptographers found a scenario where that statement did not fully hold up. That is the humiliation, honestly. The platform built its entire identity around the word private, and it took outside researchers, not the company itself, to test whether that word actually meant anything. So where does that leave you? 6 platforms tested. One pattern keeps repeating. Encrypted does not mean private. Default does not mean consented. And a company's own claims about its security are not proof. They are a starting point that someone, somewhere, eventually has to verify. Which brings us to the one service in this comparison that actually built its entire architecture around solving this exact problem: Proton Drive. Here is what makes Proton Drive different, and it is not a marketing slogan. Proton Drive applies end-to-end encryption by default on every single file, with no toggle required and nothing buried 3 settings menus deep. Out of Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, and iCloud, Proton Drive is the only one of the bunch where that protection is simply on from the moment you sign up. The company holding your files literally cannot decrypt them, even if they wanted to, even under a legal order. But here's the part that should actually convince you, because anyone can claim to be private. Proton's apps are open source. That means the actual code running your encryption is publicly available for any security researcher on Earth to inspect, line by line, and it has been inspected. Securitum, an independent security firm, has audited Proton's no-logs infrastructure for 4 straight years running. Their most recent audit confirmed that Proton's production systems cannot log user data, not even temporarily, and that the underlying hardware is owned and operated by Proton itself, not rented from Amazon or Microsoft's own cloud infrastructure. That detail matters more than people realize. Encryption running on someone else's rented servers is only as trustworthy as the company you rented from. Proton owns the floor it's standing on. Auditors confirmed that. On top of that, Proton Drive carries SOC 2 Type 2 certification and supports compliance frameworks like GDPR and HIPAA, which is not the same thing as privacy, but it adds another layer of accountability you can actually point to. A tiny audit did what a trillion-dollar company would not. Now, to keep this honest, Proton Drive is not magic, and it is not perfect for everyone. Its free tier is smaller than some of the giants. Its third-party app ecosystem is nowhere near as deep as Google Drive's. If you live inside Google Docs or Microsoft Office for daily collaborative work, switching entirely is a real adjustment, not a frictionless upgrade. This is not a "this one tool fixes everything" story. It is a "this is what was technically possible the entire time" story. And that is exactly why this matters so much. The giants in this comparison are not lacking the technology to do what Proton does. They have engineers, budgets, and timelines that dwarf Proton's entire company. What they don't have is the same incentive. Their AI features depend on being able to touch your files. Proton's whole identity depends on never being able to touch yours. Those are 2 completely different bets, and only one of them protects you by default. Privacy advocates have been pointing at this gap for years. Security researchers keep finding the cracks one company at a time. IT professionals are increasingly treating audited, zero-knowledge storage as the baseline for anything sensitive, not the exception. And ordinary users, the ones who just wanted somewhere to back up photos and documents, are slowly realizing that free was never really free. It just meant the cost showed up somewhere other than your wallet. So here's the real question this whole comparison leaves you with. It's not whether Proton Drive works. It clearly does, and it's been independently checked, not just claimed. The real question is why the 5 biggest names in cloud storage still expect you to simply trust that they won't look inside your files, when a far smaller company already proved that trust was never supposed to be the requirement in the first place. Your files, your tax returns, your private documents sitting on someone else's server. The technology to actually protect that already exists. The only thing missing is a company big enough to need your trust deciding it would rather earn it than ask for it.